Hi, my name's Keri, and I'm the Executive Director of New Shelves Books. And here today, we're here for Free Advice Friday. Every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern, we come together as a community to answer and ask questions about writing, book marketing, and publishing. And we just answer them live. It's a way to give back and a way for us to answer your questions all at one time. So I hope that you join in. If you have questions, drop them in the Q&A box here on Zoom. We are also taking emailed questions. So questions with an S at freeadvicefridays.com with an S. We take those as well. So we've got some emailed questions in this week as well as some live questions. And we're just going to jump right in. So I actually received this week probably 5 different people emailed me and said, hey, this company, and there were different companies, but this company emailed me advertising their services. One person was contacted via LinkedIn. Several people were contacted through their website offering different services for paid advertisement for their book, for different opportunities. So let's just talk about that. When you are approached, I'm always a little bit wary. When someone approaches you, rather than you going to their website or you signed up for their newsletter and you have been in contact with them and there's an offer, when someone seeks you out and contacts you about a paid opportunity, I'm always a little bit careful. And what I personally do, good old Google, go do a search, search the name of the company with reviews, search the name of the company with scam, search the name of the company alone, look at their website, look at their social media and see what's going on, see what they actually are doing. What I've been seeing with a couple of these places, there's this one in particular. It's an app that is fairly new. They're trying to kind of be somewhere between a Goodreads and a BookBub, I think. And it's an app, and this app, it looks perfectly legitimate. It looks new. It looks like a startup. So I'm not sure how much traction anyone will get from it, but I will say it doesn't look like a scam. Meanwhile, I've also gotten emails from someone who said, oh, they want to review my book. It's awesome opportunity. But then when I replied back and said, absolutely, I'll send you a copy of my book, they go, oh, I'm so sorry. That's a paid review. And then they try to pull them in and get them to pay for this review. Mind you, this person contacted the author through their website. So this was not something that you went and searched out. And the thing here is, again, be a little bit careful of anyone coming to you and asking for money that you didn't seek out an opportunity with them. Not saying all those people are bad, but I always approach with a little bit of caution, look at the reviews, and know that it may be a risk. If you're willing to take that risk, great. But that's kind of how I approach it, no matter who the company is, because again, I've seen just this week, one was from LinkedIn, that was an international company trying to get started. 2 were from an app that's getting started. 1 was from someone offering reviews. So you will get those things, especially if you have an author website. It happens. Just approach with caution. It may be a great opportunity, but again, caution. I think it's a little bit like if someone comes up to you in a parking lot and asks for help. You know, we hear these stories around the holidays all the time. Of course you want to put yourself out there, but with caution. So let me see here. I have a new nonfiction book coming out next April and would like to do some pre-marketing. What do you recommend? So if you have a book that's ready to come out in the spring, you have a couple of opportunities right now to make your launch a little bit better than it would be otherwise. Some of the things you can look into is professional pre-publication reviews. Most of them, due to COVID, are allowing ebook submissions or digital submissions right now for professional reviews. We're talking Kirkus Library Journal, Publishers Weekly, those kind of reviews. And you have the opportunity right now to apply for those and to submit for those online. Most of them require 3 to 4 months lead time before your launch date. So if your launch is in April, May, June, you still have plenty of time to do that. And I'd highly recommend you sit down, you get your ebook files together, you get a media kit together and a cover letter, and you do it. It doesn't cost anything and you're not losing anything. So that would be a very smart use of your time. I would also be looking and working on your review team, people who can review the book, read and review the book online, making sure that you're working on building up that list, and start collecting email addresses. If you have a website, if you are in contact with people, start your newsletter list so that you have a list of people to make your announcement to when the book goes live. And most people, when signing up for a newsletter, are not just going to give you their email address. Most of the time, you have to entice them a little bit with something that is free. For example, I'm working with an author right now who wrote a short story that we intend to give away for free, just to kind of get in touch with her audience and get her newsletter list built up for her next book launch. It's like a 50-page story. It's something that people will feel like, okay, I'll give my email address for that. They're not signing in blood. They can always unsubscribe. But so give something of value away. If you have a cookbook, maybe it's a whole recipe. If you have a children's book, maybe it's a teacher's guide or a coloring page. But something that people will actually want is what's important. It has to be valuable. You can't go, oh, well, I don't mind if they have this because it doesn't really hurt me. It has to be valuable. If it's not, they'll know and they're not going to give you their email address. So those are the three things, I guess, I'd really be concentrating on is building up your email list, professional reviews, and getting your reader review team kind of shored up so that you have that going, because reviews count for a lot. And the earlier you can get reviews out there on your book for readers, the better off you'll be. And make sure, of course, that your social presence, your online, your website, all of that is kind of cleaned up as well. So do a self-audit, and if you have things that need to be updated, go ahead and do that. Yeah, Diane's asking, do you have advice to use or not use DRM, which is digital rights management, for ebooks on Amazon? So here's the thing. Digital rights management is a great idea. In essence, it's supposed to protect your book files so that people cannot pirate them and they cannot, reproduce your ebook. The thing is that sometimes DRM can interact with the device people are using and keep them from opening the book. It can actually hurt your file. Not always, but sometimes. It's a small risk, but again, a risk. And DRM, for anyone who's really in there, anyone who's trying to steal your files and break those files free and reproduce them, it's going to take them 5 minutes to break through that DRM. If we're honest, if they know what they're doing, 5 minutes. So you kind of have to weigh your pros and cons of whether or not possible people not being able to read your file and it not going over well, and 5 minutes of protection. Or if you know what, if they are trying that hard to pirate it, they're going to do it anyway, and you can then, go after them and do a cease and desist for copyright infringement. Most of the time I skip DRM. I think it's one of those things that, again, it's a great idea behind it, but ultimately what will protect you and what you have to stand on is your copyright. But you make that decision for you. I think both options are fine. It's just a personal decision that you get to make as the publisher. Okay. All right. Which do you think is preferable for a debut children's book author? 1, sell my books through my website, or 2, direct buyers to Amazon or an indie store for my website? Pat, why not 1 and 2 together? If it were me, I would have my books available directly through my website. Now, however that looks for you depends on you. Maybe you're using a drop shipping company. Maybe you're using something like, I think it's Keri that goes through Ingram Spark, where essentially it's drop shipping with print on demand. But I would absolutely offer the books on your website. If you sell them directly, keep in mind that if your plan is to have a stockpile of books in your house and then every time someone orders, you have to ship them out, just keep in mind that's a commitment that you will have to then go ship those books out. So whatever works for you, I think is awesome, but I would have my books for sale on my website. I would have them up on Amazon, and I would have them up through as many other retailers and distributors, wholesalers as possible. Again, it also depends if you are doing print on demand or an offset print run. Are you getting 2,000 books printed and then hand selling them? Or are you doing print on demand? Because if you're doing print on demand, go with Ingram Spark for Ingram Wholesale, go with KDP for Amazon, and then use something like I just talked about on your website. But I wouldn't limit yourself if there's not a reason for the limitation. More is better in this instance. Yeah, so this is good. Bob's saying, I asked about a San Francisco book review, but wanted to add that they didn't approach me, but published a review of my book anyway. And so, and it's a glowing review. San Francisco book review is well acknowledged. It's an awesome opportunity. And so I think what Bob has is a great point that sometimes when you submit for a review, they don't always tell you that they are reviewing your book. That's why on our books, I always recommend that you do a Google notification for your book title so that you get notifications of when that comes up and you can maybe catch some reviews that you never found. I have to say that using that Google notification, I found out a client had a school library journal review that they didn't realize they got. I've seen different blogger reviews come up that people had no clue. So just keep in mind that as you are sending out for these reviews, some of them will contact you and say, absolutely, your book's been reviewed or it's not going to be reviewed, but a lot of them don't respond and just do what they will. So keep checking it. Do those Google reviews or a Google search, do an automatic thing to where they email you any mention of your name or your book, because you may miss things. But Bob, congratulations. Like I said, San Francisco book review is absolutely on the list of professional reviews that I would be happy to have for any of my clients' books. What kind of marketing do you suggest for book awards, and what do you recommend for writing press releases? So let's start with book awards. Book awards can be cool. Just know it can be a good way to get things on your book. It may be a good way to get some SEO. But generally speaking, book awards may not sell books. In the sense that it can be something to stick on your book that legitimizes your book. It may be something that, I'm trying to think of my words. It may be something that legitimizes your book, and it may be something that looks cool for the average person, but it won't necessarily sell your books into bookstores or libraries. Not saying you shouldn't do it. I just think that you should be aware. For book awards, I strongly recommend that you go to the watchdog site from Ally, which is the Alliance of Independent Authors. They have this amazing watchdog list, which I will try to find and actually put out, of book awards, and they rank them on absolutely trusted, proceed with caution. It's an amazing list, and you can do it by different topics and genres. So you can look for children's book awards, and it can be a great way to find legitimate book awards to apply for. Absolutely. Tara's the best. Tara put it right in there. Thank you. So it's selfpublishingadvice.org, and then it's author awards contest. They are fantastic. It's a great way to kind of look at that. And if you get an award, put it everywhere. Talk about it everywhere, because I think it's awesome, and I think it's something that you should brag about. Because if you get an award, again, it legitimizes your book. It makes you feel good, and it's cool to put on stuff, and sometimes they have cool logos. And sometimes it does sell the customer. I will say, if you're selling on Amazon, if you're selling to the end user, sometimes it does sell them, so that can be important as well. As far as writing press releases, I've used a lot of different companies. I've used people off of Fiverr, and I have used copywriters, and I have done press releases myself. And I have to say that when doing press releases, I think it's really important to find a press release from a another either small press or big publisher that has a press release. Look at what they're doing and how they have formatted their press release and emulate them. Fiverr did not work out very well for me. Press releases were just kind of meh. You can use them, but I wasn't wowed. Press release companies, because we use a press distribution company, there's 24/7, there is Cable Press. So there's a couple of different press release companies, and they will offer to write your press release for you. Again, it was fine. It did the job, but I wasn't in love. I personally prefer to either work with a copywriter or write the press release myself. Again, emulating what I've seen. When you're writing a press release, it's really important to remember that a press release is an announcement. It is a story. You have to have something to tell. If you don't have something to tell, then it's not a press release. So keep that in mind. Keep in mind keywords, searchability, and that as you are talking about your book, it should absolutely contain your title, your publisher, your ISBN, your price. Make sure that you give them all the information. And that's where I'd start. Again, look at press releases that have gone out from other publishing companies and emulate them. If your book can be tied to a story, do it. Working with a writing coach friend and client right now, who her book was specifically published in November. It's called Busting the Brass Ceiling, and it is about a LAPD cop who, as a female, went into the force and was discriminated against. And I mean, this is back in the 70s. She was expected to patrol in high heels and a skirt, which is crazy to me. But anyway, so she placed a lawsuit, and she won in November. This huge lawsuit she won in November 20 years ago. So she did a press release not only announcing her book, but announcing her book and tying it to that big 20th year anniversary. That's a story. That's something that is talking about more than just her book. It's her book and news. So those kind of things, those tie-ins are very smart, and they can work very well for press releases. So something to keep in mind as well if you can tie into anything like that. Okay. Yes, for Google Alerts, absolutely. Do your book title, do your name, do your publishing name if you have a publishing company that you're running under. Absolutely, Mary, good point. All right, before I forget, I'm going to run over to my email. I always get so excited about our live questions that I have to be careful to make sure to do our live email. Okay, book endorsements, because I know this was a question. For book endorsements, I'm getting questions of, I have lots of endorsements, industry people who have endorsed my book, and where do I put them? So if you have endorsements, let's say you have a nonfiction book about being happy, and you have 20 endorsements from famous people, psychologists, you know, just a bunch of big endorsements. How do you use them? Number one, you can put them on the back of your book. You can use different quotes like that from the back of your book as, you know, as an endorsement, as people saying nice things about the book. You can also use them in your marketing. You can use them in your media kit. But on the book specifically, aside from if you have a short blurb on the front cover and then you've got a quote or two on the back, where do you use them? On an endorsement sheet inside the book. Most of the time, I prefer to see them as one of the first pages in the book. It can either be literally one of the first pages and it's an endorsement page of just a page of endorsements, or you'll see it after the copyright page, but before the title page most often. And those are both fine. I would say, I know it's hard to control yourself, but I would pick the topmost endorsements and stick to a page at max 2. We do not need 10 pages of endorsements of your book before we get to your book. Keep in mind, you don't have to do the entire endorsement. You can do an excerpt as long as you are quoting it correctly, meaning that if you are taking a 2-paragraph quote and turning it into a one-liner, you must use ellipses, the little 3 dots, if you are shortening things up and pulling different parts, and that you cannot change the overall tone or meaning of the quote. So keep that in mind, but you can shorten things up, and a page is usually recommended, 2 at most, and then put them all over your marketing, your website. You can do endorsements on your Amazon page, on your endorsement area and your review area through Author Central. So there's lots of opportunities to use those endorsements, and I think you absolutely should make little graphics for social media with those endorsements and tag the person that gave you that endorsement. Again, so many ways that you can use those, but for the book specifically, that 1 page of endorsements in the front, and then maybe 1 or 2 on the back cover, and that's about where I would stick to. All right, next question here is, I love this. Scott is asking, 1 space or 2 after a period. I think this one is especially funny because Amy and I used to talk about this. Amy always did 2 spaces after a period, and I always did 1. And so it used to be that in professional writing, you always did 2 spaces after a period. Not so much anymore. In fact, when formatting a book, it's more common and more accepted to do 1 space after a period. Otherwise, you get that bigger gap. So I will say this, I don't think that anyone is going to be reading your book and be like, wow, they have 2 spaces after their period. That's so wrong. They did this wrong. No one cares that much. But standard practice for now for publishing, we're seeing 1 space after periods rather than 2. That's what I do. That's what I generally, stick to. But again, I don't think anyone's going to sit there with a ruler looking at it to judge whether or not you did 2 spaces or 1 after a period. So take that for what it's worth. And 1 more question from email here. All right, my 88-year-old mother has written a series of young adult books. Go her. And I'm going to purchase a pack of 10 ISBN numbers. Do you recommend me putting them in her name, my name, or because I own a consulting company with a LLC, should I put them in the name of that? So the answer for you, as far as whose name do the ISBNs go into, always, 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 the ISBN should be purchased by whoever is going to publish them. So if your LLC is going to publish the books, put them in the LLC name. If your mother is going to purchase or is going to publish the books under her own tax identification number, she should be purchasing them. Same thing, I hear this all the time. I'm working with a writing coach or a book shepherd. They're offering me an ISBN. Should I take it or should I buy my own? Who is going to publish the book and who is going to distribute the book? Who is going to retain those rights? If it's you, then you purchase your own ISBN. which is why if you work with a publisher, the publisher will assign the ISBN and they own that. But in an instance like this, where it's kind of family doing it, I think you just have to ask yourself who is going to be the publisher and who is going to retain rights and who is going to handle all the tax information and work from there. Again, it's a family matter, so that's kind of personal and how you decide to do it. But as long as you are buying your own ISBNs and you are working through that, I think that's the most important thing. Just know that the person purchasing and the tax information that's tied to them is the person who ultimately owns the right to those ISBNs. All right. After attending a webinar with a very well-known author, a question was asked about getting a profile on Amazon Central. Surprising to me, the author suggested that they go through Amazon to publish the book. My question is, if Amazon publishes your books, wouldn't they own the rights? So Jeanette, without having heard that author specifically or knowing what their platform is, Amazon works with publishing books in several different ways. You can, of course, work through Kindle Direct Publishing, which is publishing through Amazon's publishing arm to get onto Amazon. Some people will reference that as publishing through Amazon. Technically not correct, I guess, since it's through KDP, but it is tied to Amazon. So they may have meant that. I feel like I'm about to cough and I was going to look for my water, but I can't find it. Excuse me. So through KDP Direct or KDP Publishing, they may be meaning that you should publish directly to KDP and upload your book there, which is what I recommend and what New Shelves recommends, because you will make higher royalties if you go directly through KDP, as well as other places like Ingram Spark. The author could have meant that they literally are being published by Amazon. Amazon, last time I checked, had 23 imprints, where they are an official publisher with 23 imprints, and they do publish books. I've worked with some of their authors, and it's just like a traditional publisher. So you can apply and you can try to get your books published directly through Amazon, where Amazon is the publisher, in which case they own all the rights, just like a traditional publisher. Or on the third option, there is a program that kind of fell out, but it's coming back, and that is the Amazon White Glove program. That is essentially a program where an agency is publishing through KDP with a couple of extra perks and with some special attention from Amazon. Again, you're going through an agency though, and who owns all the rights to that? The agency, because they're acting as your publisher. So again, without knowing who the author is or what their platform is, I can't know exactly what they meant, but those are the three ways to publish with Amazon. Again, keeping in mind that KDP, you are using KDP as a platform for your publishing. You're not actually giving them the rights as the publisher. Excuse me, unless you actually use their ISBN, in which case they are acting as your publisher and gaining rights to your book, which is why I recommend that you go buy your own ISBN and you upload and you publish through, you upload to KDP, but you retain rights as the publisher and having your ISBN. So what that author meant, I don't know, but there are some very amazing authors who are doing excellently, who are making tons of royalties, who use KDP for their books, and that they are using, especially Kindle Unlimited. If it's a fiction author, Kindle Unlimited can be popular for some self-published authors who are doing very well, because they are getting all the Kindle Unlimited readers in on their ebooks. So it's absolutely possible. All right. We are working on a 3-part book. The first part sets the story. The second part goes back 20 years to fill you in on missing details. And then the last part goes back to the present to finish the tale. The author would like to give one part away as a perma-free, but none of the parts have their own complete story arc. So it's going to drop the reader at a cliffhanger. What are your thoughts on this? This could either work really well or it could backfire in a big way. So when you're giving something away, when you end on a cliffhanger, of course you may have people who, because it'll end and you'll say to read the rest of the story, go buy it here. That can be a lead magnet that does work. That can be a lead magnet that gets people to go buy the book. The problem is that it may be a cliffhanger that just pisses people off. They may be like, man, I was bait, hooked, and switched. And then they'll just kind of be turned off and not follow up with that. So I think you have to be careful. If you are doing this, I would say if you're doing this, let's say with the ebook where you're giving away part of it for free, then I would highly encourage that you consider putting the ebook in something like Kindle Unlimited. So you can then say, go read the rest of the book for free on Kindle Unlimited. At least that way you give them an option that if they're in the Kindle Unlimited program, they can still read for free. So you might kind of massage some of those annoyances, and then if people actually want to purchase it. But I would tread cautiously with that if you are not going to do that, especially depending on the price of the ebook. If the ebook is priced at $6.99, $9.99, I think you're going to have people that are kind of angry and feel like they were led in and then not quite given the things they were promised. So tread cautiously. All right, and if we give a part away perma-free, when they get the complete book, they'll have the part repeated. Does that make sense? So yeah, so then they're essentially getting the whole book free. And I think, or not free, they would be buying the whole book. I think that's fine. I think that they will be smart enough to skip over to the, the part that they already read. I wouldn't be worried about that part. And then I'm leaning toward maybe giving away part 2. It doesn't hurt the start of the book, and reading it a second time in the full ebook simply helps you pick up on more. I think giving away part 2 or the middle of a book is kind of weird. If I was a reader and I read the middle of a book as a freebie and then had to go back to the front, I think that I'd be kind of confused, and I don't know. Not knowing the story, I could be wrong, but I think giving away part 2 of the book doesn't feel intrinsic. So I don't know. My gut says no. My gut says that's not going to play off well. But again, I have not read the book. I don't know what the book's about, so I can't say that for sure. But I think that, I don't know. It doesn't sit quite right with me personally, but that's me. And would you do this for the ebook only or the paperback as well? If you're going to give it away, I would just give the ebook away, and then they can go buy either the ebook or the paperback is what I would do. You may even put that at the end, to read the rest of the story, go buy it on ebook or paperback, and give them the option, and they will do as they will. I like that you guys are thinking marketing-wise, though. I like that you're thinking of those lead-ins. Let's see. All right. Randy, what are your thoughts on Amazon sponsored brand ads? I'm so excited. So for those of you that don't know, KDP, in concert with Amazon Advertising, has just rolled out for the everyday advertising account Amazon sponsored brand ads, which is a new opportunity where you're actually creating a brand that you can then do paid ads for. This is something that in my account, because I have a very robust account and we get beta testing a lot. I've had this for a while, so it's not new for me. I will say that these sponsored brand ads have good and bad things. The good thing about it is that it really calls out your book. It's like a standout. But I will also say it really looks like an ad, and people can be turned off by clicking on things that are obviously ads. This is why keyword sponsored keyword ads work so well, is because they put your book in a search and it looks pretty organic. So it looks like if I'm searching top mystery titles and it shows up in my search, it looks like it's just supposed to be there, aside from the gray sponsored out area. So it could do well. I think it depends on your brand. It depends on what you're selling, because again, sometimes it's nice to have that call out when you do sponsored brands. I think it can be nice to have the call out that looks obviously like an ad and it is not in row with everything else. But again, it can also backfire, because then it doesn't look organic. It looks like a paid ad, which sometimes people can tune out. I think people are either one way or another. I am that jerk that's like, oh, that's an ad, I'm not going to click on that. But some people do. Some people are drawn to that. So I say, as always, it's marketing. And marketing means we try it out and we see if it works for you and your brand. And I would take a cautionary budget and I would try it out and see if it works for you and compare it to your other ads and see if it stacks up, see if it does better, see if it's not getting you any traction, and then go from there. But I think it's a cool new tool that is out there and that you should absolutely explore it. Let's see. All right. Randy said that's an awesome answer, and I'm going to go with that. Let me see. If you have questions, drop them in the Q&A. I'm going to go back and make sure I answered all my email questions. Yes. And so I know we've talked a little bit about niche categories. Lately, we've talked about making sure that you're getting your book in some niche categories so that you can actually rank higher for your book. So rather than just having your book in self-help happiness, which is kind of a big category, you can get your book into stress-free living for business or different things like that. I don't know if that's an actual category, but there are some little niche categories. And someone is saying that they did that, but they didn't realize that they could have multiples. And yes, when you're sending in these niche categories and asking Amazon to put your book in these categories, you can ask for up to 10. Now, I will say that I have sent in many Amazon categories, and every once in a while, I will get a kickback saying you can only put in 8. I think it depends sometimes on just who you have that you're getting through to on Amazon. So sometimes they'll give you different answers, kind of the nature of the beast. But in general, 8 to 10 categories for your niche. And I think you should always do that. Keep in mind that what shows up is going to be your top 3 categories. So even if I send in 10 categories and they are connected to my book, only the top 3 where I'm ranking will show at any given time. And that's why your categories can kind of roll through and roll out at different times. They tend to stay pretty similar, but you will see them change up every once in a while. And that's why they don't want to do a huge block of categories where they're all listed all over. And it's also important to know that there are different categories in different marketplaces. So the categories for the US are not necessarily the same categories for Canada or the UK. So you do have to send in and you have to specifically ask that those categories go into each marketplace, and you have to make sure that the categories are available in that marketplace. So do your research. Again, there's lots of tools and software you can use. You can do good old-fashioned, go to the bestseller list and look through and find categories that fit your book. But niche categories can make all the difference in a ranking. And what I'm finding more and more is that books that we have put into great niche categories, meaning that they are true, that they fit, they're honest, and that they can rank well, the book can rank well in these categories. What I'm finding is that as they continually rank on the top 100 bestseller lists, those books are naturally just getting more algorithm. They're getting more sales, they're getting more lift, and they're staying in the overall rankings much higher. So if the Kindle overall ranking, let's say, is 100,000, and they are in good niche categories, they're staying up towards the 100,000 mark compared to dropping down to the million or 2 million mark, because the algorithms are saying, oh, they've been on the bestseller list for a really long time. And I have seen amazing lift and traction from that one simple change, making sure that you're in good categories. Now, again, a good category is not just niche, it's a niche that fits. Because if, for example, I have a business book that's very no nonsense, nonfiction business book that maybe drops a couple of curse words in there, and I think, oh, but I could rank really well in religion right now. I could relate, I could rank really well in nonfiction religious books. So I'm going to put my book in those categories. What happens is you're telling Amazon that your book is a religious book, and that's how they will start working your algorithms. But you're not going to get sales because it's not a good category. Your book doesn't really fit in that niche. So they're showing your book to people who buy things in the religious sector often, but it's not being bought. So then in the long run, you may rank quickly, but in the long run, your ranking will start to tank because it's not being bought, because it wasn't a good category. So don't be tempted to cheat the system, because it doesn't work in the long run. And I've seen that recently as well, where it tanks the algorithm, and it takes a while to get that back up. So make sure that in all things that we're keeping our integrity, that we're doing things that really make sense, as well as making sure that we're pushing ourselves forward. That's my soapbox. I guess I'll come down now. All right, you guys, I got through all of our emails. If you have any questions, please drop them in the Q&A, and we'll finish up for today. I don't know what you guys are up to, but I know that I'm ready to go. My kids are snuggling on the couch. I'm ready to go snuggle, watch a movie, and have some coffee. All right. Yeah, can we remove categories if we made that mistake? You can. You can email into KDP just like you did before and just say, please remove these categories. You don't have to give them an explanation, anything like that. You can just ask them to remove them. All right. Nancy, I'm gonna need a little bit more information on your question. So you can either use the chat box or the Q&A. Because it was kind of broad, but if you have a specific question, let me know. I don't think I missed it, but I will check through my email just to make sure if it was a long question. Oops. Jeez, I opened up my email and 30 emails later. See if I can look through here. We're all good. Yeah, if you had a deeper question, Nancy, I missed it. So again, if you could just put any question, specific question, because Nancy's asked about endnotes and a bibliography. So I need a little bit more information about what specifically about those things you'd like. And guys, remember, if ever you can't make it on a Friday, we do a replay over at New Shelves. It's it's over at YouTube, and that is youtube.com/New Shelves Books. And so we do our replays over there. Those are always posted on Monday. And you can send in your questions early. It's questions with an S at New Shelves. Oh my gosh, guys. Apparently I need that coffee. It's questions@freeadvicefridays.com. And we take those questions and we answer them live on Fridays. So know that you have those options if ever you can't make it at 10 a.m. Eastern on Friday. All right, I'm not getting anything else in. So guys, I think we're gonna head on out. I know it's a little bit early, but go enjoy your family. I hope that everyone had a beautiful Thanksgiving and that you are taking time this weekend to really just enjoy it. Enjoy your family, enjoy some downtime. I'm reading a new book. I hope that you get to do that as well. And hopefully we will see you next Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern. Bye guys.